the legislation that we're after on a state level, obviously has to begin at a local level here. So we're trying to work with the Board of Supervisors. We're trying to work with any other organizations that are interested in this. And it's above and beyond us. We went through the process to get where we are today, and we know what the difficulties are. And I think we can share that experience to make it easier for the next person to do this. So ultimately, I want to raise awareness so that there's more people doing it, because being alone in a system like this is a very lonely place to be as far as trying to keep your business going. So if we have other people that are interested in the idea and they can say, hey, here's a model, this is what this fella did, and he can maybe help be a guide in this whole process. But then we also need our county government to help us get there as well. And the idea was to create awareness on the topic, let people figure out what exactly it is and maybe how it would apply to somebody they know, or somebody, or if it's to them, if it's for them to do it themselves, then it would open the door for that possibility. And that's exactly what we're after with this event. We also were looking to get a process maybe in place at the county, that the county would help establish maybe a guideline or a guidance system or an application process, or a list of things to consider while doing this, and then figuring out how does it apply to you, and then helping that individual get there. It's going to create economic viability, and it's going to preserve green space ultimately and have a minimal footprint on the landscape while creating that viability economically, both for the farmer and for the people that are supporting it. A business like this is gonna do everything from an agricultural standpoint, as we do already: feed, hay, anything related to our equipment. So we're having to constantly interact with other businesses on the agricultural level. But when you introduce the tourism, we're inviting a whole nother level of business. It could be the hotels, it could be gas stations, other restaurants. They go shopping, they're going to visit other agritourism sites, hopefully, and maybe they're here in the area to do just that visit for agritourism sites. And that's going to create a whole nother opportunity for us, and hopefully develop a agritourism trail similar to the Crooked Trail for the music, or similar to the winery trails that are already in place. And we have to interact with our park systems, and we need to interact with other tourism type situations where we can get noted. We have monies in the county that are currently being spent now on tourism, and there's nothing to say that in the future, in the next budgetary process, that maybe we can get included in some of that, or maybe there's some warrant to the money going out that a certain amount of it goes to agritourism, and what percentage is that? And if we can get those things started here locally, then maybe hopefully we can get them up to a legislative level, maybe in the Senate or the House, or perhaps both. And we need to look at things that are preventative for a farmer to want to do this. And one of the hot topics always comes up is insurance. If insurance could be less expensive, or if it may be applicable to a limited time frame, then obviously that should drop down the costs. But perhaps there could be a tax incentive that both the insurance organizations would embrace, as well as the agritourism site. If you get this additional liability insurance, then you can get a credit on your taxes. Obviously, I don't have all the answers to that, but this is a beginning point, and hopefully there's going to be the right people that'll look at this and say, hey, it's not such a bad idea, and we need to get involved and see if we can help that process. Further, that legislation at the state level could also be some kind of guidelines that would help the local governments establish what is an agritourism site, how does it become an agritourism site, what are some of the things that the state needs to consider while the local governments are embracing these ideas, and hopefully have some guidelines put in place there that offer some investment to the protection of the individual who's about to make the investment. Further, that additional legislation could involve an individual organization. When you look at a situation like this, you have tourism and you have agriculture. And some people say, well, that's all tourism. Well, it's still at a farm. So that hands it back over to agriculture. Well, we can't have them going, well, we don't know what department this belongs to. And we do have some areas and some focus on this currently, but it needs to be further defined and more people brought into this subject to say what organization is going to do it. Is it the Farmers Direct Marketing Association under the Department of Agriculture, or through the Virginia Department of Tourism or the Tourism Corporation? Again, I don't have the answers, but when we can bring people together and we get the right people involved with the positive things, and don't always bring your concerns to the table and just be negative. Hopefully, if you're going to come, bring some positives with you, because we don't want to hear the negatives. We know what they are, and that's why we're here today, because we want to move this thing forward and see who can help this process and grow this process, because this is good for the small farms. It's good for families. It's good for families that are visiting the places like this, And at the end of the day, you can take a seasonal employment in an agricultural situation and make it into a full-time position. You're creating jobs. You're also going to create ancillary revenues for your local government. So at the legislative level, it's important to see it from that point of view and get some understandings on that it's not a cookie-cutter process, but we have examples in other states. I keep getting referred to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, so we look for people to look at Lancaster. And when I explored that, they do have an application process in their county level, and they have all the things that you need to consider all spelled out for you. The Virginia Cooperative Extension Office as well has some things there, but they're not as congruent maybe as the Lancaster opportunities are. Many of our counties around Augusta have looked at agritourism. I think agritourism in Augusta County has a possible opportunity to be a front runner and hopefully an example to the Commonwealth of Virginia for what this could be.